Welcome back to yet another top 10 list here on McGTV. Now, we've all had our favorite kinds of movies or television shows or books in which we love to follow protagonists and be sympathetic to their plights. But how about some of the villains or some of our antagonists? Sometimes their background and motivations can be just as intriguing, if not sympathetic. Let's face it, sometimes it's just more fun to be on the villainous side. So here are my top 10 villains whose side I'm totally on. Bowser from the Super Mario Bros. Franchise. Now, at first glance, this might seem like an odd choice for my list, but let's think about this. You have a giant reptilian leader who's excluded from society in general that is mainly comprised of talking mushrooms. The monarch in charge of everything is not really that great at her job, seeing as how she delegates most of her safekeeping and responsibilities to two Italian plumbers. Also, I question her intelligence and strategic thinking since she spends most of her time baking cakes for the heroes. Needless to say, I don't think her style of government really works. So why not include Bowser, this patriarch of a noble warrior turtle clan, to swoop in and kind of disturb the established monarchy? Yeah, he kidnaps a princess and yada yada yada, but at the same time, his traps are pretty easy to overcome. Honestly, I feel Bowser's just doing this to prove a point, that he could be a more effective leader than the established princess who does really nothing except get kidnapped very easily. But because the Mario Brothers are too myopic in their vision for established reptilian democracy, they just go ahead and chuck him off that bridge with the axe. Why not? Sorry, Bowser. Maybe you'll get your day more when you win the Mario Kart tournaments. Dracula. Now, I'm mainly going off of the Gary Oldman version of this, since this is the version I've seen that has the most established backstory for him. Dracula I really get behind in this version. He loses his lady love. God casts a blind eye to him, so he just straight up repents against God. His reincarnated lady love is choosing Keanu Reeves over him. Come on. And honestly, he is a very charming figure, even when he is in crazy old man makeup. Sure, is he an undead hellspawn who feeds on baby's blood? Yeah, but you know what? You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. I'm sure if the stipulations of being a vampire meant you could just eat rare steaks all the time, he'd be all for that, but no, it's fresh blood or nothing. Dracula. I hear the sweet music the children of the night make. Ed Harris's character from The Rock, Brigadier General Hummel. Here's the thing, sure, he hijacks a bunch of missiles and targets San Francisco with them. But guess what? That's all a ploy. He has no intention of actually doing that in the movie. Nope, it was all just a bluff in order to get proper compensation for his men who have been sacrificed time and time again on secret military operations, and their families have never gotten any kind of compensation. Now, granted, a couple of his people spring a mutiny and try to go full-on apocalypse at the end, but that's not really his fault so much. Drastic times called for drastic measures, and Hummel was very much trying to just get his message across the best way he knew how, through his military mindset. A noble man with good intentions but just misguided execution. That's all I see here. Tetsuo from Akira. Nobody gives this poor kid a damn break. He's considered the shrimp of his biker gang. He gets beat up by other biker gangs on a regular basis. Those freaky elderly blue kids just mess with him in hospital because, I don't know, they're totally jelly of his totally awesome power. And everyone just sees him as a resource to be exploited. The government wants to dissect him and study his power levels. The general Japanese populace just sees him as some kind of messiah and only want to use him as some kind of figurehead for their own political movements. It's not only until the end that his best friend Kaneda actually comes to some semblance of understanding what is wrong with him. But throughout this entire movie, Tetsuo is just beaten down until he gets some power and he starts delivering the beatings. Which I think is kind of the appeal of the movie, let alone that character. It is very much what we would do if we've been picked on our entire lives and we're suddenly given the power of the gods. Right there with you, Tetsuo! This one's a tie. Godzilla and King Kong. These guys just do what comes naturally to them. They're wild animals, albeit either giant or genetically modified by nuclear power type animals, but still just animals. Poor King Kong gets uprooted out of his home on Skull Island, taken to the bright, colorful, noisy world of New York City, and put on display as some sort of freak show. You would go kind of apeshit too, pun intended. And yeah, Godzilla rampages here and there and just trudges through a city or two, but They're in his way, come on. Plus, there are times Godzilla's even got our backs. Maybe not intentionally, but he still tries to deal with any bigger threat that comes along the way and puts the rightful smackdown on it. And how do we thank him for his troubles? We continue to fire missiles at him even after he's saved our collective asses. And what's worse, the movies are always in a fever to pit these two against each other. As if they didn't have enough problems already with humans shipping them off to foreign lands or shooting at them with nuclear missiles. And to kind of go along with that tangent, the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park. Many characters throughout this franchise even state that these creatures were willed into existence not by God or creation, but by man. They're man-made genetic abominations who have no idea where they are, so of course they would naturally lash out or resort to their just natural instincts. Yeah, encountering the T-Rex for the first time is pants-crappingly terrifying, and the raptors are very smart in a very chilling kind of way, but they're only doing what comes naturally to them. They're hunting, they're pursuing food sources. And the worst part of it yet is they're doing it in captivity. So honestly, we're having a negative impact on these creatures from the very get-go. Sure, I want little Timmy to make it out alive, but I'll understand totally why that T-Rex chomps down on him. Harley Quinn. Yeah, later on we find out she used to be a therapist for the Joker and was turned batshit. Again, pun intended. But I liked her even before I knew her origin story. She was just this lovable light counterpart to the black as hell soul of the Joker. Sure, you might take some kind of sick amusement out of the pranks the Joker pulls on people, but with Harley Quinn, they seemed a little bit more innocent, a little bit more wide-eyed and optimistic. Plus, she is very sympathetic in the fact that she is in an abusive relationship. Every time she tries to get out from under this domineering personality that the Joker has, you feel a little bit more sorry for her. She is so love-struck by this creep that she just keeps coming back for more. And she's even further sympathetic when other villains are telling her this is a bad matchup. Harley Quinn, you wouldn't want to be cornered by her all by yourself, but at least you can laugh at a couple of her exploits. Or maybe you do want to be caught alone with her at some point. I don't know if that's your thing. Angela Baker from Sleepaway Camp. I'm not going to try to ruin too much of the ending for you, but let's say definitely something is off about Angela from the very beginning. But at the same time, can you blame her for doing what she does ultimately throughout the movie? Your story begins with tragedy and the death of your sibling and dad. You're raised by your crazy as hell aunt. You're sent off to a camp that apparently does nothing with regards to background checks because it's full of pedophile chefs and counselors who are like 60 and want to do the kids. And speaking of those kids, holy God, I wouldn't mind smacking a couple of these little brats every once in a while. They are merciless with their taunting and teasing of her. And she's not even doing anything. She's shy and likable. Granted, she'll give you the death stare every once in a while, but I think that's warranted given some of these brats. So when the big reveal and plot twist comes along, yeah, it's shocking, but at the same time, I still got your back, Angela. At least for this movie. Your sequels kinda suck. Magneto from the X-Men. Again, I feel it's an example of good intentions but bad execution. But at the same time, he does have a point. We as human beings are a shitty species. Several civil rights movements and decades of oppression and slavery later, we haven't really learned much, have we? So no duh Magneto would be a little bit more militant about protecting mutant kind. Granted, Charles Xavier is a little bit more diplomatic with his approach, but that's a given his background and his ability to tolerate shit. Magneto was a Holocaust survivor. His motivations and origins are born out of horrific tragedy and prejudice. And that's before he even knew he was a mutant. Other times he goes way off the deep end? Oh, hell yeah. But everything always comes back to the fact that he understands more and more than Charles Xavier does about what it means to be different, and how people in society can wildly and quickly turn that against you. Magneto, the Malcolm X to Charles Xavier's Martin Luther King. Severus Snape from the Harry Potter series. I was totally on Snape's side even before the big reveal of his past with Lily Potter. Even before the grand reveal of Dumbledore's very confusing plan about killing Horcruxes. I was in Snape's corner from the very beginning because, my God, does it suck to be a teacher at that school. If there aren't supernatural threats coming at you from outside the school, then the teachers themselves are trying to kill you. Plus you gotta deal with celebrity kids like that Harry Potter douche, total incompetent morons like Ron Weasley, Weasley, or persistent know-it-alls like Hermione. Yeah, I would totally be the educational grump that Severus Snape is throughout the majority of this story arc. Now granted, as a lot more of the reveals of his background are shown, it becomes way more understandable why he is the way he is. But I feel all that does is really add to the fine cake that is Alan Rickman's Snape. Yes, I'm not gonna lie, the late Alan Rickman's performance really seals the deal for me on this. I wouldn't be half as sympathetic to Snape as he was portrayed in the books if it wasn't for that on-screen portrayal. He delivers heavy on the sardonic wit and the sarcasm and the gloom. But at the same time, you find that it is throughout the entire movie series tempered with some kind of humanity. Even when he does quote-unquote deplorable things like kill Dumbledore, you can see the conflict on his face when that happens. So there you go, Severus Snape. From the very beginning, I was rooting for you to come out on top. And you kinda did, if being killed by a talking snake is really coming out on top for you. Oh crap, should I have said spoilers for that entire last one? Sorry.